An interesting comment that we got from Will Core is Zelensky banned 11 political parties today, invoking martial law. 5 of these parties were avowedly socialist by name. Other parties were left and pro-peace negotiations. And then Mark Ames tweeted, interesting that Zelensky isn't banning Ukraine's neo-fascist parties like Svoboda or the Azov neo-Nazis. He can't, obviously.
Well, if you watch PBS News, and I don't suggest you do, you'll have the intrepid Jane Ferguson on their reporting from the front line saying things like, over here is democracy. She's referring to Ukrainian land, and over there is, basically authoritarianism. Well, that's interesting. Yes, it's true. Zelensky did ban 11 parties today, but this is not new. They had, in the last period under Petro Poroshenko, his predecessor, they banned communist parties. They banned anything to do with essentially the left. Some small groups were allowed to operate, but they essentially, proscribed communism, Marxism, and so on before. So this is not exactly a departure. This is part and parcel of the same thing. At the same time, Mr. Petro Poroshenko, again, Zelensky's predecessor, allowed ultranationalist groups to thrive. Mr. Zelensky, despite his own statement about, being Jewish and so on, seems not to be overly worried about the growth of not only groups like the Azov Battalion and so on, but to bring back the legacy of people like Stefan Bandera and people who. Bandera is a complicated character. He did spend some time in a Nazi concentration camp, so he's a complicated character. But he is a essentially Ukrainian fascistic nationalist, and there is that. Now, look, Katie, I'm not an expert in Ukraine and Russia, but I'm a old-fashioned journalist. So the moment things like this happened from 2014, I immediately went and read a lot of things about the long history of Ukraine, the long history. I was actually pretty surprised to find out that for 400 years, there was something called the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. 80% of the world's Jews today are descended from people who lived in that Commonwealth. 80% from that one region, which went from the Baltic Sea all the way down to the Black Sea and little further down into Moldova. This Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, they elected their kings. This is, before the French Revolution. It's pretty amazing, thing what they did there. The capital was Krakow, and then it was Warsaw. That's the reason Warsaw is to the east of Poland. It was actually the center of the Commonwealth, but with modern Poland, it's towards the east. And what I found, which was interesting, is the principal contest was between the Duchy of Moscow. This is the Grand Duchy before the Tsarist Empire, and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. They had a lot of tension between each other. There are also old histories here about Russian chauvinism and Ukrainian chauvinism and so on. This is not just a conflict that started in February 2022, Putin good, Putin bad. No, this is not even about simply the Euromaidan coup of 2014, Vicky Newland in the Euromaidan saying, Yats, get Yats, throw out, etc., get Poroshenko later. It's not just that. These are also old histories. People in the new world, as it were, not so new, but whatever, in the Americas, have a much lighter historical experience. But in older countries where there's an unbroken history from the past, don't underestimate the power of these kind of old chauvinisms that rear up. Vladimir Lenin, to his great credit, wrote a lot about the dangers of great Russian chauvinism. And by the way, here's another example of the kind of intimate but tense relation between Ukraine and Russia. The Saint Vladimir Putin is named Vladimir, so was Vladimir Lenin. Russia claims Vladimir as their main saint. So does Ukraine, but they call him Volodymyr.
Right.
And so these are places of great intimacy and tension. And we got to understand that this is not about Putin. This is not even about Lugansk and Donetsk. And, these are also old histories. What's amazing, Katie, is when the Soviet Union collapsed, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. it collapsed with almost no violence. Uzbekistan, SSR became a country, and Ukraine became a country, in Georgia. Look at the difference in Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, NATO intervened immediately in 1990 when Croatia broke away. Uh, 500,000 Crimean Serbs were expelled in a major ethnic cleansing in Croatia in 1995, now completely forgotten. And NATO goes and bombs that country in 1999. I have a whole theory of why NATO bombed Yugoslavia in 99, but it was with immense violence that Yugoslavia was broken up, and NATO played a role in it. Actually, the Soviet Union collapsed with, in a sense, in peace. This is also a part of the kind of delayed effect of breaking up something like the USSR. But none of this is in the discussion. It's all
Right.
about Putin good, Putin bad. I can't imagine how people can live with such a shallow understanding of a conflict. Okay, tomorrow Putin has a heart attack and dies. Do you think everything is going to
Right.
change? It's ridiculous.
And what is your theory about why NATO was involved?
Well, yes, that was a little bit of an amuse bouche, I suppose. In when the Soviet Union collapsed, there was a serious discussion about the question of NATO.